Today, our guest is Eric Yesayan. He's an urban planner based in Los Angeles. We have some questions about SB9, and I think Eric is going to be perfect at answering all those questions. I want to go over the memo and the frequently asked questions. Eric, have you seen SB9? What do you think about SB9?
I have. It's exciting. It's something new that's in addition to all the opportunities we already have with ADUs, and it's going to let people expand on what they're able to do with their single-family homes.
Yeah. The biggest question for us before we kind of go and read the memo and go into the nitty-gritty is SB9 is going to allow a lot of things like lot splitting, like 6 units on a single-family home. Do you think this is going to work, or do you think this is a lot of fluff until we actually kind of fix it and make sure that it's perfect for the consumer and for the housing crisis?
I don't think it's fluff. I think it is a real thing. The way it's drafted, however, it limits how many people or what properties qualify. So it's not like something everybody can do, and it's definitely not targeted for big developers to take advantage of. It's really targeted for an owner who wants to live in their property and find a way to make a little bit more money by taking advantage of, providing more homes on their property.
Yeah, well, we'll talk about the single-family homeowner, and I know there's owner occupancy issues, so let's kind of go through it. I'll share my screen, and I'll ask you a couple questions. Maybe you can clarify some things.
Sure.
So this is the frequently asked questions. I'm sure a lot of people have seen this from Los Angeles City Planning. I think we'll go over the correspondent memo first. I highlighted a couple of things, but I think one of the first questions is we have kind of two different things. We have the 2-unit developments as well as a lot split of a parcel. So are those the same things, or are we treating that kind of separately?
Yeah, so they are different. So this memo is from the City of LA trying to decipher and interpret the state SB9 law as how it relates to LA City. So if you're outside of LA, you should look at whatever the respective city you're in is how they're implementing it. This is for LA. This is a memo that clarifies the guidance until they develop a bigger ordinance for SB9, which is going to come later. So until then, we have this memo, and then we have the fact sheet and the FAQ.
Yeah, and then well, it's a good thing that you said that. This is Los Angeles only. Are other cities coming out with SB9, or are we going to see LA kind of come in first, and then all the other smaller cities around the metropolitan area write up their own SB9?
No, I think you're seeing a lot of cities already coming up with stuff of how this is going to be implemented. They have to, because this was made effective as law that it needs to be implemented as of January 1st. So if cities haven't provided any kind of guidance by now, it's a little late. But there's I'm sure still cities that are still figuring out what to do. But a lot of cities are also putting something interim in place until they draft a full ordinance, which is, in this case, LA. That's what they've done. This is an interim memo that provides guidance until they come up with an ordinance that lays out exactly what can and cannot be done. So until then, we have to rely on this memo. And to your original question, if there's a difference between 2 units and the lot split, there is a difference. So there's 2 things you can do. With the lot split, you can do a lot split, and you could put 2 units on each lot. Right. Or you can not do a lot split and just put 2 units on the lot plus ADUs. If you do a lot split and put 2 units on each property, what this memo clarifies is you can't put any ADUs in addition to that. So if you want to have ADUs, then you have to not do the lot split and put 2 units and the ADUs, or you can do a lot split, but you can't take advantage of the two unit.
So
So
what
you
is
put
the
a unit on each one, and then plus ADUs.
what is the maximum that you can the maximum units a single family home can have with the 2-unit development, and then also with the parcel split?
Yeah, so the maximum would be with if you do a parcel split, then you could do 2 units on each property, so 4 units on 2 properties, but you can't add any additional ADU on it.
Okay. And the 4 units on the parcel split?
Yeah, 4 units, 2 units on each property.
Cool. Okay, nice. And
So there's limitations, and this memo goes through. For example, the biggest, if you go to the online portal, ZMIS for LA City, it clarifies, which properties qualify. Number 1 on that list is you have to be in a single family zone. There, you have it highlighted right there what single family zones are in LA City.
Right.
So your property has to be one of those zones.
Yeah, so the first thing, and we'll tell everyone about that. You can go on ZMAS, you can put in your exact address, and it will right away tell you if you're eligible or not eligible. Single family home is kind of the first one, and these are all the single family homes in LA. And then, and mostly we're going to see R1s. But if you're not one of these zones, you're not going to get anything for SB9, right?
Right.
Okay, and then the next thing I think is the wetlands and the hazardous waste sites, the floodplains. I think we see this a lot with urban development. These are just places that don't allow you to have so many homes or multiple homes. Is that correct?
Yeah, so if your property is in one of these areas, then you're not going to qualify. Again, ZMIS can show that. Maybe you want to bring up ZMIS and you can show how it's done, because that is a little easier to look at the checklist on ZMIS.
Okay.
And we can do an example property, like if you want to just put, if you have a property in mind, like a single family.
Yeah, let's do 1, 2. This is not it, but let's. Is this a single family home?
We'll find out.
Yeah.
So under here, you can go planning and zoning, go down. And there's a line called SB9 eligibility. Do you see that?
SB9 eligibility.
Yeah, so click view. Right. So here, this is a checklist. It's basically, it comes out of all the stuff from the memo. This says what the property is qualified. You want to zoom, can you zoom in a little more to the text so it's readable? Yeah. So the first thing says, is this property single family zone? It says yes. All 3 of these, the first 3 items here have to be yes in order for you to be qualified as yes, as a SB9 eligible. So the second one is, you want to go through them, or?
This is environmental, right? So it's, are you a farmland? Are you a wetland? Are you hazardous waste sites, which is we kind of talked about right now? Do you have flood zoning area? Everything is no so far. This is Federal Emergency Management Agency. I guess no, but if all of these say no, I think you're good to go, right?
Yeah, if these say no, then it's fine. So if you can go back up.
All answers must be no.
Yeah, so before the environmental stuff, you have to make sure your property qualifies for these 3 things. So the first is a single family residence. The second is it's within within an urban area, urban cluster. So it can't be in a very rural setting. So that's number 2. This says yes. Number 3, it cannot be in a historic district.
HPLCs.
So this says yes, that it's not in a historic district. So if you have a yes for all 3 of those, then you're good. You move on to the next thing, which is the environmental standards.
Right.
And here it says all the environmental standards have to be no, like you just said. So if it says all no, that your property is not in one of these protected or hazardous areas, then you also qualify. And then you go on to the next thing.
Next thing is transit.
Yeah. So if your property falls into one of these, if it says yes to one of them, then you qualify for parking exception, that you don't have to provide the required parking.
Okay.
That may be required. It's a little different from the ADU parking exception, because ADUs are, yeah, it's within half mile of any kind of transit stop. This is a little different. There's it's called a high quality transit corridor or major transit stop, which is defined in a little different way than how the ADUs are defined. So you just have to make sure if you have a yes in one of these boxes.
And Eric, correct me if I'm wrong, but the ADU, everyone got crazy with the ADU laws in 2020. One of which was the parking, and there was so much parking excitement, which was nice. But was this how the original ADU laws were written in 2017, where there was still parking issues, where it said major transit stop, and then in 2020, the city and the state kind of went a little bit less stringent in the parking?
No, actually, I think the ADUs originally have always been bus stop it's within the half mile of bus stop. I think even the 2017 law was like that too.
Okay.
I don't believe there was a change in that. But with this SB9, there is a change. A major transit stop essentially means something like a rail station. Mm-hmm. So it's not every kind of bus stop. And then high quality transit corridor is a very different thing. The regional, basically the Southern California Regional Authority has to have said, like, this is a high quality transit corridor area, or LA DOT has said this is a high quality transit corridor. So if you're within half a mile of that, then you're good. So it's very different in that sense from the ADU laws. This is more stringent than how the ADU is written.
Yeah. So we'll tag somewhere here for this section and for this section, and we'll kind of explain it in a blog about what high quality transit corridors are and major transit stops. If we move on to D, so we have one of these as yes, right?
So so you're good here. If it says yes in one of those, you're good. The next thing is housing criteria. So this is if your property is considered RSO, so has rent controlled units on it.
Sure.
If you have one unit, it's not going to be counted as, it's not considered a rent controlled unit. But if you have 2 units or more that have been built, I think prior to 1978, which is when the rent control law was put into place, then you have rent control units, and there's limitations on what you can do. You can't touch, withdraw, or demolish the rent controlled units. And your lot split cannot split up those 2 units. They have to be on one property. And so you can still do a lot split, but you just cannot touch or demolish or change the existing rent controlled units in any way.
Yeah, I read the demolition. But let me ask you a question. Most of the SB9s are going to happen on single family homes. And most single family homes obviously only have 1 unit, and they're not going to be rent controlled, right?
So they're not going to be rent controlled. However, if you had a tenant who lived there, or if you had an ADU with a tenant, then that might limit you on what you can do. Like, you can't just split up the ADU and the house.
Sure.
They have to be on one lot, and then you could, whatever you split, you can build 2 additional units, or you can build an additional unit in whatever you currently have, so as long as you're not reconfiguring the existing stuff.
Both of these say no, so I think we're okay to move on to section E.
Yes.
Cool. And then it says areas require a certain standard to be met. And this is VHFHS zones, and this is mostly going to be, on the canyons. So we're definitely not in the canyons on this one, and we're also not on a earthquake fault zone, so this will be okay. So
Yeah, and even if you are in these, there's just some more review that's necessary. It doesn't mean you're not totally disqualified from doing it, but there might be some additional requirements and additional review that they have to do. But in this case, yeah, if you have no's, that's great. That means you can move forward.
Cool. Okay, so I think we'll be okay. This is a really good checklist for people to say. So let's just go back and kind of explain to people how to do it. We go on ZMAS. Let's try again. Like that. You put in your number here. In this case, we went. Let's do this just to see a different one. You put in your address here. It takes you to the right address, single family home in the valley. You click here, planning and zoning. Planning and zoning. And then there's now a new section called SB9 eligibility. You view this. And then you have all of your questions here. This is all your information, which a lot of people want to know. You're looking for yeses. You're looking for nos. You're looking for a yes here somewhere, one of these. You're looking for no's and you're looking for no's. Now, these are not going to kill you for SB9, but it's better that we see all no's. So this is just a basic example of an SB9 that we can get done. Good. Questions for you. I know a lot of people want to talk about the short-term rentals. I see here demolition. I think you brought it up before, but you may not demolish any other units, right?
So if you have an existing tenant or if it's an RSO, you're limited on how much you can demolish or change. Okay. So there it says, where you have it highlighted, it's 25% of perimeter length of existing exterior structural walls of a dwelling unit as part of the development is prohibited for any site that has been occupied by a tenant in the last 3 years. So anything more than 25% is prohibited from being demoed. That's including, a house that has had a tenant before. So if you haven't had a tenant in that house, you've lived there, then you can demolish the house and reconfigure the lot the way you want it to be.
Yeah, because a lot of people are going to talk. We're going to talk about sizes in a second, but this is actually very important. If you live there yourself, then you guys can demo the house and redo the whole entire lot. If you have tenants in there, then we can only demolish 25%, which might cause an issue for the next page, and we'll go over that. And then this is very important. I want to go over this. There is no short-term rental for any of the units that are created with SB9 unless you register for the home sharing. So this is basically the same law as ADUs, right?
Yeah, the same thing. They're trying to make this work for people who need long-term housing.
Yeah, I think ADUs give a lot of long-term housing. And so should SB9. Again, really, if you want to do these short terms, there is a way to do it, but you got to register into the home sharing, and it's got to be over 30 days. And there's a bunch of laws, and we have another video about Airbnb stuff and short-term rentals on our YouTube page. Another one. So then it kind of comes back to this 2-unit development versus the urban lot split. Can we do a unit on SB9 that is under 800 square feet? I think we cannot, right? All units in SB9 have to be over 800 square feet, right?
I don't think that's what it says. This is basically saying that the city cannot put regulations that cannot let you at least build an 800 square foot unit as part of SB9. So if the city has something, if the city allows you to build something under like 800 square feet, like a 500 square foot house, you can do, like you're allowed to build a 500 square foot house, but the city just cannot limit you in a way with setbacks or whatever that cannot let you at least build an 800 square foot
That's good.
A house. So what this is saying is basically the maximum that the city is allowed to put a limit on what you can build with SB9 is 800 square feet. That's the maximum. So you likely to be able to build under 800 square feet if the city lets you.
Okay, so this is just talking to the state. It's saying don't go crazy, but you can build under and over. Just depends on your lot.
And what the city
and of course,
how the city lets you. Yeah, but you should be able to do at least 800 square feet. That's what it says. City can't limit you from not doing that.
The setbacks, I guess, are basically the same thing as the ADUs. No setback required for existing structures. That's fine. And not more than 4 feet from side and rear lot size. This is what we're seeing with new construction ADUs, correct?
Yeah. So that 4 feet is the same setback as ADUs. So it'll apply for SB9 as well. The good thing is if you're doing an SB9, you have a house and you're doing a lot split, that house also doesn't have to meet the current setbacks. You can take advantage of the SB9 setbacks.
Right.
So you don't have to demo the house in order to meet the setback requirements. So that's a good thing.
And I've heard actually a lot of people now, I don't know what the issue is, we'll bring it up soon, but a lot of people might have to lose their fireplace because of setback issues. So we can talk about that a little bit more. I have to do a little bit more research about that. But yeah, existing houses, with SB9, existing houses don't have to have any issues with setbacks.
Yeah. And fireplaces have an allowance. I think it's 18 inches that can be within the setback area.
So maybe that's that. We'll have to do some more research.
Yeah,
on
there's
that.
an exception to fireplaces, but it's not big. It's like 1.5 feet.
Okay. And then this historic, I think we went over it. So we cannot have SB9 in any historic district, period, point blank, right?
Right.
And then this says historical cultural monument. I've never even heard of this. But I guess you can't have it on HPOZ or HMC, right?
Yeah, if your property is designated as historic, then it can't be part of this.
Okay, so I think parking, a lot of people ask about parking. Basically, the rule of thumb is 1 parking space per unit. But if we go back to ZMAS and it says that we're half mile away from a transit zone or a corridor, then we'll be okay. So I think we kind of went over this parking situation. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Anything that you want to add to parking? I know a lot of people have parking questions.
No, I think that pretty much covers it.
Okay, and then we talk about the adjacent structures. So is it possible to kind of if you have a bigger home on your unit, if you have a bigger home on your lot, can you split an existing structure? Or it has to be
so that's interesting. It might be possible. So the way this is written is that the city has to allow you to be able to split building as like a condo kind of situation. Mm-hmm. So it's possible.
It is possible.
I think this is what this section is referring to.
Zoning regulations.
But you have to put in the safety standards that comes with that. So with condos or structures like that, they have higher fire walls requirements that are required. You might need to put sprinklers. So there might be a huge costs in upgrading to meet the code to be able to do that. So just keep that in mind.
Yeah, there might be building and safety issues when you want to split a single family home, but from a zoning and planning perspective, they allow it. Mm-hmm. Okay, and then SB9 projects may only be issued. So I think this is just some fluff. I don't think this is too important. I think this is a big question that people have. So you can build no more than 2 new units if it is proposed to add 1 new unit with 1 existing unit not including. So, but again, this is for the 2-unit development, and you said again that you can do 2 separate structures on the lot without splitting the lot, right?
Yeah, so you could do 2 units without splitting the lots, and you're able to add the ADU. If you split the lot and take advantage of the 2 units on each lot, you can't use ADUs.
Yeah, okay, that we went over that. Unit size.
So the maximum you're able to do is basically 4 units.
Yeah. This was the big question for me. I think this is why I asked that question. It says each unit shall be permitted a minimum of 800 square feet, but that also just means that you can do it lower than 800 square feet, right?
Oh, actually, so this is LA's memo. So LA is saying they have to be minimum 800 square feet.
Okay, so that's my big question. My question is, if you're doing SB9, you have a single family home, you want to do a second home on the lot, whether you're going to split it or not, that second structure is going to be a single family home and needs to be a minimum of 800 square feet, right?
Right. Yeah. Okay. In LA, that's how they are implementing this.
In the city of LA. Okay. I like that. And then accessory dwelling units. It says ADU and JADU are not permitted on parcels that use both the urban lot split and the 2 developments. No more than 2 units, including ADUs and JADUs, may be permitted. So this is the 4 unit that you're talking about, right?
Right.
No more than 2 units, including ADU and JADU, may be permitted. But this is 2 units per, not per lot split, but per the development, per the lot split. No, sorry. For the 2 unit development, you can have 2 houses and then 1 ADU, 1 ADU.
Yeah, exactly. If you're taking advantage of the 2 unit development, then you can't do the ADUs.
Yes. This is the wastewater treatment. I don't think it has any issues. It says if you have a septic tank, you have to clean it and make sure that it's certified in the next 10 years. Not too many people have that issue. And then again, short-term rentals come back again with no more than 30 days. We've went over that. Additional provisions. This is just like LA DBA stuff. DBS parcel. Okay, so this is another good question that we had. 2 more parcels of approximately equal lot. So originally they told us that if you had a 25 or 30,000 square foot lot, then you can just split it up and have one lot that's 1,200 square feet. But this is now saying that it should be approximately equal and no smaller than 40%, right?
Yeah, this comes from the state law as well, that you can't split a lot that's like 20% of the size of what it is. It has to be at least 40%. So they want to make the 2 lots look more or less equal in size.
But basically, these are arbitrary lines, right? Do homeowners need to very much care about where they're drawing their lines?
Yeah, absolutely. Because there's going to be like, how are you going to get access to the other lot? You want to make lots that are, you have to make them more or less equal. You can't just split it and give 10% of your lot away. It has to be at least 40%. You need to have, if you have a lot that is narrow but long, then you have to think about how you're going to give access to the lot in the back. So your lot in the back, your area in the back will have to look like a flag lot. And the FAQ or in the memo, it says you need to have at least a 20-foot wide driveway to be able to access that. So that section that comes down to the street has to be at least 20 feet wide.
Right. So so it does make sense. I was more saying if they're okay with doing 50-50 and they have a pretty wide lot, I mean, homeowners shouldn't care whether it's exactly 50% or 42% or 43%. In general, if this is going to work and everyone is going to live cohesively on the lot, then we don't need fences. This is just going to be kind of opened and no city inspector is going to come in there and ding you by a point or not, right?
Well, it'll be two different lots. I mean, you could sell the other lot, so you may want to put fence because it's gonna be essentially two legal lots. They're gonna have. They also need two different hookups. If you have two legal lots, two different hookups to electrical, water, you can't just extend the line from the water from the house.
Right.
They have to have their own separate connection for water and utilities.
Are we going to get into the selling of the house? I didn't see it. I didn't see it in this memo, but I think let's just keep going down to maximum. Okay, so this we discussed. This is the right of way. I didn't even highlight anything of the right of way. This is talking about the 20-foot driveway. It is not residential use. Okay, only residential use may be allowed on the urban lot split. Is there any place that we wouldn't have residential use? Or, you can't open up a shop or something?
Yeah, I mean, if there's a residential zone that maybe might allow you other kinds of uses, like, a studio or dance studio or something like that, this is basically saying you can't have any other uses other than residential purpose.
Okay.
You can't split up these units and then one unit becomes, like an office. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
that's what they're trying to prevent.
And again, this is all for housing, so I think this is understood.
Right.
Owner occupancy, we already discussed. And the zoning, this provision does not apply unpermitted. Is this something that we have to look into? Of course, we have this issue with ADUs that are unpermitted and illegal, and bathrooms and garages. But this just means that we have to kind of demo everything and bring it back if we're gonna. What does this mean? This provision does.
I think it just means if you have an illegal construction, then the city can enforce, their code on it. It may not necessarily mean that you have to demo the entire structure, but you have to get it permitted and bring it to code and make sure it's legal before they allow you to do this SB9. It does not apply to if you have something that's non-conforming. The city cannot tell you to bring something that's like needs to be in compliance. Like if you have a smaller driveway or your lot may not be considered like legal by today's definition, then they can't tell you to bring those things in compliance.
Yeah. Okay. I think fees. They're saying it's going to cost you roughly $4,000 for the lot split, for the urban lot split, and then you're also going to have a bunch of other fees. We haven't done one of these, so I don't have a fee calculation, but you can click here for the park fees, and I'm sure you're going to have school fees, and I'm sure you're going to have fire department fees and a bunch of other fees. I don't know what those are. Eric, do you know what the fees are? Have you done an SB9 yet?
No, I haven't done one yet.
Yeah. So we'll let everyone know about that. And I didn't see anywhere in this. Let me turn back here. I didn't see anywhere where it says that you can actually sell the lot. I know a bunch of people ask those questions. If you split it, can you sell both lots?
Yeah, it does not preclude you from selling. So you are able to sell the other, like one of the two lots. You did sign an affidavit saying you were going to occupy, one of the properties. So that's a question of how the city is going to enforce that, because you do have to sign that. So I don't know if that'll stop, like the city can stop you from selling if you want, because it is your own like legal lot. There's no requirement to add a covenant or, something that restricts you legally. The city might be able to come after you if they think like you just like you didn't have maybe a valid reason why you're selling and you're no longer occupying it. Since you did sign that, you have to sign an affidavit.
Does that affidavit say how long you have to own or occupy for?
I believe it's 3 years.
So yeah, you're going to live in one of the units for 3 years, and then you're either allowed to rent the other units, or are you never allowed to rent it, or is just owner occupied for 3 years?
Yeah, you have to own or occupy one of the units, so you're not allowed to rent it. That's the idea. It's required. Owner occupancy is required for SB9.
But is that
unless
forever?
you are a nonprofit, like a nonprofit affordable housing developer, you don't have this requirement.
But again, is that only for 3 years or is that forever?
No, I think it's 3 years. I'm not remembering the exact number of years, but there's a time limit, and after that you could you can rent it out or sell it.
Okay, well, Eric, this has been amazing. I think you got a lot of questions for us answered. I think there's a lot more that we have to study eternally, maybe write a blog about each one of these things, like a blog about parking and a video special about parking. But this is a good place to start, I think, for most people. I think we went really, really deep on a lot of things. I did think that SB9 was a little fluff before this, but they're giving us a lot of good things. So I'm happy. I hope to see more SB9 lot splits and urban development soon. Anything that you'd like to add, Eric?
Yeah, I mean, I think it does allow a lot of opportunity. If your property qualifies under that checklist, you can do a lot more than you could do before. And I think it's going to be really interesting of how this plays out in the coming years.
Cool. Eric, I would love if you kind of talk to us a little bit about what you do. And if someone wants to hire you to help them with SB9, are you taking new clients? I mean, give yourself a little elevator pitch.
Yeah, sure. So I do land use consulting, work in LA County, coastal areas, Pasadena, Glendale, Burbank. Work on ADUs, single family homes, multifamily projects, some commercial. And if a property is a little complicated or you have questions, feel free to reach out to Joseph or me, and we can help you through the process and what you might expect or potential challenges or issues you might or you should be aware of.
Yeah, guys, Eric is a superstar. I'm going to link Eric's information and contact information down below. Every single time I have an issue with basically anything that has to do with planning and zoning, I call Eric. Eric helps me out. He writes my emails. He's top notch. So I'll link his stuff down here. Eric, thank you very much for joining us. I hope you have a very good week, and we'll update everyone on everything that SB9 comes. Thank you, guys.